All right, so hello everybody. Welcome to IDERA software. We're going to be talking about SQL Server products, and especially two of them. We get a lot of products around SQL Server administration, monitoring, and auditing, but today we're going to be focusing on the SQL Server Diagnostic Manager and Compliance Manager. So all the products at IDERA are categorized into these three categories: performance and monitoring, security and compliance, and backup administration. As you can see, there are plenty of products in each category. But today we're going to be talking about the DM, Diagnostic Manager, of the first category, performance and monitoring, and SQL Compliance Manager in the security and compliance category only. But there are also some bundles that are grouping several products of different categories if needed. There is flexibility about that. So let's start with Diagnostic Manager. That product is a 24 hours, 7 days monitoring solution running in production, with the main goal of monitoring the performance and availability of your SQL servers. And the main objective is really to be proactively alerted as soon as there is a slowdown, there is a deviation, there is a degradation of performance, any kind of issue related of the monitoring of your SQL servers in production. The goal again is to be proactively alerted before the end users to complain on your hotline, because it's too late and it will take more time for diagnosing, deep diving, troubleshooting, analyzing, and then resolving the problem as fast as possible. So the goal of the product, the first goal, of course, is to send you an alert, any kind of alert. We will see that later, but to be proactively alerted as soon as there is even a small slowdown, or even a slowdown over many weeks, not only over the last minutes or the last hours, but even among the last 10 weeks, for example. So these are the main key benefits. This is again 24 hours, 7 days monitoring solution running in production, but the particularity is this is an agentless solution, meaning that you don't need to deploy anything locally on your production servers, SQL servers. Everything is grabbed remotely by our agent, which is installed on another box. So very important to deploy in a couple of minutes a new SQL server to monitor. This is a real-time product, but also having a repository, meaning that all the metrics collected in real time are sent to the to the framework, to the engine, and that is storing on the fly the metrics into the repository. And the goal of that is to be able to come back in the past and to analyze, like a cold case. You want to come back last week and understand why there has been a slowdown or even a bottleneck somewhere in your SQL server. The metrics, yes, we get more than 100 different metrics from your SQL servers, but also from your Windows operating system. So we get them through the SQL server itself, but also through WMI from Microsoft, and also from the cloud, of course. So the alerts and actions are there to to be getting proactively alerted for sure, but also the actions means that we want to receive an email, or we want to send a SNMP trap to your hypervisor, or even to integrate with the ServiceNow products. There are plenty of different actions that are valuable for not launching the console on a daily basis. You don't need it. Well, the main key benefits are very simple. As I said, it's a 24 hours monitoring solution. whatever the environment, physical, virtual, and even the cloud. We monitor the cloud, of course. We monitor mainly the performance, meaning the queries, but also the query plans to see the causes of any blocks or any deadlocks. We monitor the real-time sessions activities. We have the monitoring of capacity planning to see the database growth trends, for example, but also the MindMaze self-scroll. We monitor the application transactions with SQL workload. Also, we have a lot of recommendations that are very useful. For example, if you want to know why that particular SQL statement is so poor in terms of performance, response time, or why did it use so many resources, we get that recommendation feature that can be useful. Custom counters means that if you want, you can add new metrics in the product, not only the more than 100 that are by default collected, but you can add your custom counters from SQL Server, from Windows, from any other external third-party tool if you need it. And custom dashboards, yes, because we can also customize the main dashboard that you will be working with on a daily basis. There are plenty of predefined alerts and there are plenty of predefined reports, meaning that you can just generate on demand the most useful report for you, but you are also able to schedule that report to be automatically generated and sent to the right person in the company at the end of each day, for example. The detailed query analysis is very important, and we're going to be looking at what particular slide around that. So what about the architecture? Very simple architecture, 3 tiers actually. So as I said, the first tier, which is an agent, is not deployed locally on your production machines, whatever the environment, on premise or in the cloud, but it is deployed on the same Windows box than the framework itself. So meaning that yellow wheel in red, is the agent that is collecting remotely the metrics from your production SQL servers. And then this Windows service actually is sending the metrics to the Windows service dedicated to the framework to push them into the historical repository. By default, the settings is 1 year, 365 days, but it's changeable. You can do whatever. You can change, for example, to keep only 3 months of data or 3 years of data. And lastly, the third tier is the clients. So the console are based on 2 types. The first one is a web UI based on web browsers, so HTML5 technology, meaning that you can use any kind of web browsers in the company. It can be Firefox, Chrome, Safari, Edge, and so on. And the second one is a .NET based technology. So that is important to make the difference between both. The web UI is more dedicated to I would say high-level management, to operation team that just want to be alerted as soon as there is, well, an alert raised by the product, and to give the hand to the right person, which could be a DB, but also another technical guy in the company. So it's the highest level vision for the web UI, not to deep dive, not to make a troubleshooting analysis. To do that, you need to get the .NET clients to get all the metrics, 100% of the metrics. And as I said, regarding the alert that you want to receive, it can be by email, it can be by integrated in ServiceNow, it can be a SNMP trap, but also a PowerShell script, SQL script, a SQL job, a batch that you want to execute, a lot of different things. And the report, the report is output by default in video, but can also save it in Excel, in the Word. And if you want to schedule it, you will be using the SSRS solution of Microsoft, reporting services. And that's it for the architecture. So again, a very simple architecture based on the agentless framework and the third tier. Let's have a look to some screenshot before jumping on the live demo. Some screenshots around the fact that whatever the support that you are using, the material, it can be a PC, it can be a smartphone, it can be a tablet. It's responsive, so meaning that you will be exactly looking at seeing the same graph and the same format and so on. So this is a main dashboard of the .NET console. And when I look at that, I can see that on the left side, this is there are the nodes and the leaves where you can select what you want to see. So you can even create your personalized view. By default, these are that ones. I mean, you can see the critical warning, okay, not mode, but if needed, you can create your view, for instance, regarding one particular application, SAP application, or if you get agents deployed on monitoring the production and another one, the pre-prod on staging and so on, then you can create a view for prod, for non-prod and so on. The tags also are interesting if you want to build some reports based on the tags. That is possible. You just have to create the custom tag that's needed. Then we have customization of the main dashboard, like I said, and then physical and virtual metrics are everywhere in the different graphs. This is just a screenshot to show you that we have the weights monitored by the agents, and this is very important when we get some weights on the server side to understand which kind of weight is it. And so in that example, the color on the right, the legend says transaction log compared to red IO and other in blue. So we have a lot of dimensions to see these different weights. For example, clicking on the weights tab means that we will see the different weights with this bar chart that are very important to look at the total wait time. So what is the weight which is the most impacting my SQL Server? Write log right now, but if needed, I can also look at the statement tab to look at what is the most critical statement that is impacting a lot of the SQL Server globally because of these weights. Applications, databases, clients, sessions, and users. So all these views are different, but the goal of this is to understand very quickly which components is impacting my SQL Server. Very fast and easy. Sorry, I didn't see that. All right, so discover the wait type, SQL campaign, wait type, SQL script, etc. Now, regarding this dashboard, it's dedicated to the real-time analysis, to the current activity, meaning the active sessions are connected to my SQL Server, and especially the blocking sessions. So that is very useful when someone is complaining on your hotline because he's stuck and he doesn't know what to do. You can immediately look at that dashboard and see if there are some blockings sessions. And in that particular case, when I zoom in, I can see that effectively at that time, 114 and 115, so two sessions were blocked, and the 114 is blocking the 115, and for each of these sessions, we can see the last command executed by each of these sessions. So the current activity dashboard is really useful for looking at the blocked situation in production in real time. And that's screenshot because this is important to get recommendation for the product. It's not only a monitoring solution, but it's also making calculations to give you back a lot of valuable recommendations. advices, what to do to improve globally the performance of your SQL Server. And that is really, really important because we are not only looking at the metrics, the duration, the CPU, the memory, the performance, but we are also giving you how to improve. So in that example, we can see that the what we name the prescriptive analysis in the product is making a lot of calculations on these different categories that you can enable or disable. By default, they are all enabled, looking at the activity, the resources, the configuration, and the workload about the index and query optimization. And as a result, you can see the list in that analysis. So that analysis, what we name is prescriptive analysis, can be about 5 minutes duration, because it will check everything, not only the SQL optimization, but everything. So if you can see the different lines, each line is a recommendation. So for example, the first one, backups are on the same volume as the data files. The integrity of database has not been checked since 255 days. Integrity, backup, and so on. And then we get other recommendations, like the query store is not collecting data because it's out of space. Then the SQL Server user writes log pages in memory is not being used. Then query plan compilations per second are greater than batch requests. So the goal, and for that one, deadlock information is not being captured. And for each of these recommendations, you get the information, the details, descriptions at the bottom with the recommendation section. And this is very important because it gives you what to do to avoid that recommendation, to cancel it. And there is another thing to know, to be aware about, is in that prescriptive analysis, for some of them, these recommendations, you will get the optimized script. So clicking on that button will show you this Windows pop-up, optimize now, with everything that you have to rewrite for optimizing that particular recommendation. So very useful, ranked by priority, detailed SQL recommendations, provide optimized script, and that's it. Well, I think now we are at the end of the presentation for SQL Diagnostic Manager product. We can jump onto the live demo. So let me jump to my clients. Yes, that is this one. So as you can see, this is exactly the same look and feel than on the slides, meaning on the left side, I can drive what I want to look at, and on the right side, I'm observing the different graphs, values, tables, arrays, and so on. So globally, there are 4 workspaces, servers, where you look at everything in terms of metrics, reports. If you want to generate a report, there are 3 categories of report: monitoring, analyzing, and planning. And for each of these categories, you get different sections: servers, virtualization, activity. If you select analyzing, you get servers, databases, resources. So for instance, if I want to look at the top databases, I click on it. Just to let you know that is very simple to generate a report. I mean manually. I have to choose my main SQL Server. All right, for today, yes, today, last 7 days, or even custom range. I will choose today. For how many databases I want this report to be generated on? 5. All right, and run reports. And very quickly, I will get the response from the engine, where I can see the top databases by data size, by data growth, by reads per second, writes per second. So all of these reports are predefined. So this is very simple to use. If I want to save that report, I can click on save. If I want to, schedule that report, I have first to deploy the report in the SSRS software. Microsoft, very simple. So I will choose which report I want to deploy on SSRS and so on. And once done, I will just have to click on the timeline icon to schedule when I want these reports to be generated and sent to the right person. So this is how to proceed. I was in the analyze but monitoring servers. There are multiple different servers. For example, reports. For example, active alerts. Select a server again. Yes, I'll select that. Run reports, and again, I will see exactly the active alerts for that particular SQL server. Let's jump to, and custom means that you can also create your custom report if you don't want to use the predefined ones. There are dozens and dozens of predefined reports. Looking at the alerts workspace, very simple to understand that you will see 100% of the alerts in that dashboard, in that workspace. But you can filter by tag. So this is important to create your custom tags. By server, I want to look at the active alerts for one particular server, not all of them, for which metric, for which severity, critical only, apply, and I will see only the red alerts, and so on. So you can filter by different filter fields, or you can also look at the views on the left side. Active is the default one, but you can look at the, for example, the SQL agent job failures, alerts, or the blocked sessions, and so on and so on. And then on the right side, you get the timeline. By default, these are the active right now. But if you want to look at the alerts raised yesterday or 2 weeks ago and so on, you will see, for instance, the 21 of October up to the 24th, apply, and then you will see the full exhaustive list of all these alerts raised. Once done, you select the one that you want to investigate on, clicking on the line, and you will see all information details about that alert at the bottom of the screen. Very important to mention there are always almost always 3 hyperlinks. Show alert help is very useful if you want to understand what does it mean, that a particular alert. And then the other links are to start your troubleshooting analysis, investigation. So that can be a methodology of working with a product. If imagine that you receive an alert by email, then you click on the link, and automatically it's like if I was clicking on that link, automatically I will be jumping on the right dashboard to analyze the details of that particular alert. So now I'm in the sessions menu. Looking at sessions means the real-time activity with the current session, open session, and active session. So I can see the full list of the session, details, summary there. So graphs around the session. I can see effectively log statistics, wait time, which is increasing a lot for that particular latch wait, right? So I can even change the metric of that graph with looking at the deadlocks. So no deadlocks right now on my SQL server. What about the requests? I get a lot of requests, more and more increasing, object requests and so on. So you can change the different metrics per graph when you get the black arrow, yes, at the right side of the title of the graph. So let's come back to the details where we are. This is important to mention that we can make an action on the SQL Server in production with that kill session button. So imagine that you are in the deadlock situation. Well, you don't need to depart server, you just need to kill the session there, clicking on it. Do you want to kill? Yes, of course. Logs, everything about the logs and blocking, especially the block reports or the deadlock reports. It's like you looked during the slideshow. For example, this is a Windows pop-up, and effectively for that block report, I can see that it was at 2 p.m. I got the blocking process details by the session 109 with this command line, and that is blocking that 120, which is executing a select top 500 and so on. Right. Let's continue with the resources. Very simple summary. What about the usage, CPU usage, core rates, hit ratios, memory usage, and so on. SQL Server physical I/O. If you want to make to look at more details about CPU, click on CPU. More details about memory, about disk. So everything related to the disk activity. What about the disk size? What about everything on my C drive? What about the disk, the file activity? And what about the procedure cache? And effectively the server weights. So server weights, as I said on the slide, very important if you want to understand which weight is always met. Other. So other is the blue line. When I see the other weights, well, the other weights, they are almost to zero. So the other weight here, I click on it, and I will drill down into the different types of that particular weight, other. And this is always the same graph, the same curve, SOS work dispatcher. So that one, and effectively we can see the total weight. This is a SOS work dispatch. So, and again, you can change the way of looking at this graph with the different black rows, all weight types by default, but I can choose to look at another category like non-IO page latch, and I will see different run and so on. And same thing for the different by default resources weights, but we can see the total weights or the signal weights. So a lot of information regarding the server weights that you can get in the resources menu. What about the databases? Database is really used for availability group when you have a the high availability cluster. That can be useful, but also for the tempdb summary. TempDB summary, if again someone is complaining on the hotline with his session, you can look at the TempDB activity and you will see all the sessions ID doing what's in that particular TempDB with all the metrics related to each individual session, especially the last command line, if not exists, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of valuable information to diagnose a TempDB bad situation, even changing the version store cleanup rate with MDB contention, for instance. No contention in my case. Files can be useful if you want to look at the different files. So, well, TempDB no, I want to look at all the files of the databases, and you will see the possibility of selecting several databases at a time, looking at the different data files, and especially to compare the size of the data files on the third graph, the third part of the dashboard, current megabytes or in percentage. That can be useful. Free is green, blue is used, and then the backup and restore and tables indexes. This is where you can see the different objects for one particular database. I chose my business database on that SQL Server, IDERA forum, and I get a lot of information around these, all the tables in that database, especially the size. For example, if I choose one with a lot of indexes, I will see the size of the data compared to the size of the different indexes. But if I want to look at the stored procedures on that particular post table, I will click on dependencies and so on. Services is all about the Windows services related to the SQL Server. So 3 services, SQL Server Agent, and Brother. You can even stop and start both. Same thing for jobs. If you want to stop and start a job from there, from the DM dashboard, you can do that with the stop and start job there buttons. The queries, very important. The queries, by default, you are looking at the signature modes, meaning the product is aggregating by types of statement. So we can see the select top statement, another one in insert into select this tank. The goal of that is to have very quickly the impact of each individual statement on the visual performance of SQL Server. So when I look at the average CPU consumption, this is the blue one, query 3 my underscore B, and this is the first one, SQL batch. But if I change to another metric, for instance, average duration, maybe it's not the same. Well, this is the same in that case, but maybe regarding the blocking and so on, yes, query 32. The goal is to have the visibility that you want to have. But the colors, yellow and reds, are automatically put by the product to show you immediately what is the longest statement execution, the one that is using a lot of CPU, a lot of writes, a lot of IO per second, and so on. And if you want to look at the execution plan, you can get it immediately clicking on that planet icon, and you will see the full exec plan that you can export in an image or in an XML format. You can get the SQL text, the query columns involved in that execution. And then if you decide to start your investigation, I mean troubleshooting, because you want to optimize that particular statement, then you right click and you look at the query history, because you don't want to lose your time to deep dive and troubleshoot that statement if it was just executed once with a very bad response time, but just once in the day. So you want to look at the past, and for instance, since the 8th of October, and you will see the different graph, using CPU. Well, it started to be huge up to today. So, and in that case, you will see each individual execution of that particular statement. So that is interesting. And then from there, if you right click, you can see the full query text, and especially a new button, diagnose query. And that is interesting if you want to get back some recommendation from the product itself. The diagnose query means that we are involving the prescriptive analysis, right? And we are now located in the analyze menu. And this is what the product found. The use of select star has been found. Of course, recommendation, it is recommended that you change select star to explicitly include only the columns needed and remove the star. So that can be useful. And if you want to look at the problem, you click on show problem, and it will underline the part of the code, the SQL code, where the problem is, right, in the full text. So this is how we use the analyze from starting from the signature mode and statement mode and so on. Now it's another way. If you want to imagine that you did all things that you had to do to improve the performance of your database, you don't know what to do more. You don't have any more bad situation with the queries analysis like that one and so on. So what to do? Well, you can even choose to go directly manually to analyze, and then to run a new analysis manually. So if I click on run, you will see all categories that are checked, enabled, except the workload at the end. You can select index and query optimization and then run analysis. And as a result, you will get this kind of recommendation. So not this one. All the recommendation with only one means that I started from the queries analysis and I decided to click on the diagnose query. That's why I get only one recommendation for that particular query. But this one, 211 recommendation, if I double click on it, you will see plenty of different recommendation. Integrity of database for sure, but look, index, that index and table experiences high levels of page patch contention. Another one is page size contention. That one. This is a very large table, greater than 1 million rows, and a high number of modifications have been made since the last time statistics were updated. So these are a lot of information. When is this not a problem, and why is this a problem? And recommendation. So again, even if you finished everything, every task you had to do, then you can still run that analysis, and it will give you back a lot of information, right? I think, well, yes, it's time now to jump to the other products. This was a very short introduction to SQL Diagnostic Manager, but very important to mention, interesting. Now we can come back to the slideshow and talk about the other product. And other product is SQL Compliance Manager. So SQL Compliance Manager is, well, also a product running 24 7 days in production. But it's not monitoring, it's auditing your SQL servers. So there are plenty of needs to get this solution running on your SQL servers. And especially when I look at this graph, the goal is of CM is really to audit and alerts on SQL Server user activity change and data changes. So the product tracks and manages SQL Server database compliance quickly and easily. So the goal is really compliance with all the regulations, existing regulations like PCI, HIPAA, SOX, GDPR, STIG, and so on. So the goal is really to verify that your SQL Server are compliant with these regulations. But it's also auditing the servers and the database and the sensitive data to see who did what and when and where and how. So that is a really important product. Tracing all the changes relative to the DDL command line, to the GML command line, to administrative actions, but also security changes. So this auditing and alerting also on suspicious activity to detect and track potential problems. So that is important to get some reports. So the predefined reports are satisfying the auditor's needs because you will generate the reports on demand on one particular SQL server. Audits with configurations and reports for multiple regulatory guidelines requirements. So the product is really useful for auditors and I would say DBA that will ensure that the SQL servers are compliant to the regulation. Relevant data means that by default the product is monitoring all data, but it's better to select, to filter the data that you absolutely want to audit. Especially you have the filter of before and after data. That can be useful if you want to track the changes of one particular column on a table. Alerts, yes, if you want to discover unusual volume of events and alert on specific events, you can use alerts. But by default, there are no alerts in the product. You have to create your custom alerts rules. You want to receive an email as soon as someone changes the data of one particular column in a table. Again, this is who, when, where, and how someone did something in your SQL server. While the two teams, main teams are administrators and auditors for sure on that product. Yes, what about the architecture? The architecture is a 3-tier architecture like DM with a slight difference regarding the agents. The agent absolutely needs to be deployed locally on the SQL Server host. So that's why we get a lot of yellow wheel, red icon, because we need to deploy on each host that particular agent that will look at the traces files of audit files of the SQL Server itself, and these data to be aggregated for being sent to the management, to the collection server, which is the framework, every 2 minutes through different port numbers, which are default, but you can change them for sure. So the second tier is the framework, which is again linked to a repository. The repository can be, well, it is a database created in any kind of SQL Server instance, we don't need to get a dedicated SQL Server for the product, like for DM. We just need one SQL Server instance somewhere, and we will be creating a new database repository for that product and for the other one too. And then the third tier is the console. And again, there are two types of consoles: the web client, the web UI, which is a light view for high-level management and operations, and the desktop based on .NET technology, again, to deep dive, to look at everything related to the audited data. Well, again, yes, the reports can be generated on demand or put in the SSRS solution to be automatically generated. Let's jump onto slide screenshots about the main dashboard. This is a .NET client, so the most important console. Again, on the left side, you get what you are auditing, and on the right side, the different graphs and values to observe. So you have to choose the different SQL servers and databases. You don't need to audit 100% of databases in one SQL server. You can select the ones that you just want to audit for sure. And these are the recent alerts. If you created some alerts in the product, you will see the result there as a high-level summary. With that particular system status high-level summary 2, which is automatically calculated by the product. All servers are OK in green. Sometimes it can be yellow warning and red critical, depending on the different settings. And on the right side, you get the enterprise activity report card. That is interesting to look at overview. During the last 30 days, 7 days, 1 day, you can see the graph, the curves, depending on what you want to look at. Failed logins, for instance, or security, or DDL, privileged user, or even alerts and so on. In that screenshot, this is dedicated to audit events visibility. So by default, you will see 100% of audit events, but you want to filter. You want to select the one that you want to analyze. So for that, you get 6 filter fields based on the time, based on category, DML, DDL, blah, 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 the type, dates, insert, delete, for instance. The login, you don't want to analyze all users, applications, hosts, and even grouping with this enable. I will show you that during the live demo. So everything is then presented in that table, with each line is an event. And when you double click on one line, you will go into this event properties windows, where you can see everything related to that event, especially the SQL statement, but also the details. If I click on the details tab, and the before after data, if there were setting around the before after data tracking, for example. And yes, this is the database properties. So that's interesting to show you what kind of settings you have to put to set at the very beginning of the product deployment, because by default it is doing standard settings, which could be not very interesting for you. So for instance, the DML select filter, by default, you audit all database objects, which is probably don't need it. So you just want to select the database object that you want to audit. So filter using the tables filter, add, remove, permission, and so on. If you want to audit system tables, stored procedures, so there are plenty of options. And in that tab, audited activity, you can get the choice to database definition auditing, DDL, DML, database select operations, administrative activities, security changes, and so on. Or access check filter. By default, it is disabled, but if you need it, you can enable it and choose among the passed access check or the failed access check. And you can also look at the capture SQL statements for GML and select activity or transaction stage. And if you look at the other tabs, we will see that on the live demo, there are before, after data sensitive columns. So yes, so let's jump onto the product to have a good vision. So this is the .NET client of Compliance Manager. And as you can see, I'm located at the highest level in my tree, audited SQL Server. So I'm looking at the 1 day. So that means I'm looking at that scale, 1 day, 24 hours. And I can see for each individual event. So event alerts. What about the logins? What about the logouts? The failed logins, only one in the day. It was before midday today, this morning. Security, DDL, privileged user, overall activity, and so on. There have been severe alerts 49, and nothing related to high, medium, low. All servers are okay, that's fine. Now, if I want to look at the SQL Server itself, and I click on it, and I will get into the details of the audit configuration for that particular server. So what I'm auditing is logins, logouts, failed login, security, DDL, admin, UD, for which privileged users, one privileged users, logins, logouts, and so on and so on. So these are the configuration. And if I want to change, well, just looking at the recent audit events for that particular SQL Server, I get into the list, exhaustive list of all the events. But if I want to look at the configuration, I can right click and go into the properties. And then I can see the tabs that we just looked at on the slide, looking at the audited activities by default for my demo. I selected everything, logins, logouts, fail login. But again, it's really up to you depending on what you want to audit with the product. So I did everything except the IP address auditing and passed for me, not failed, the access check. Trusted users. This is important to add the user that you don't want to audit, because you will reduce the footprint of auditing products. So if you don't care about some users because you are trusting them, you will have to select them, clicking on the add button here. What about the privileged users? So privileged users auditing is well, I would say the opposite of the trusted users, meaning that it's completely the user that you absolutely want to audit, right? So these are the privileged users. You will specify which ones. For example, no, I don't want to look at the server rules and server logins to add, but this is how to do. Privileged user, so I put myself as a privileged user to be absolutely audited, and by default it is auditing all activities done by this user, but you can select the one that you want to. And the auditing thresholds are very simple. By default is always 100 per hour, 100 event alerts, warning, and critical 150 for the logins, logouts, but you have to change the numbers regarding your particular production, of course. And well, if I want to look at the database level, I click on the database itself, and then I will see the audited activity for that particular database. Regarding my yellow color is meaning select compared to DDL, DML, admin, security. But I will see also the configuration for that particular database, and I can see before and after 1 table, sensitive columns 2 table, no trusted users, and no even filters on that database. And if I want to change again, right clicking properties, and I will see the audited activities for that database only in the SQL Server, not the others. GML select filters, yes, I want to audit all user tables, but not the system tables. That's why I didn't select audit system tables. I want to audit the storage procedures and the other objects like view indexes and so on. But I get two new tabs at the database level. The before and after data, very important if you want to trace changes on one particular column, for example, I added the votes table, and if I edit it, I can see that I selected the column user ID, but I could also look at the post ID, meaning that I want to track the changes of these two columns on that particular table votes. So, and before and after data. Same thing for sensitive column. By default, all are empty. I mean, there is nothing. I just added for the votes and for the users table. And I want to particularly look at the sensitive data of the column user ID and vote type ID also. Right, so that is how to proceed with, I would say, setting the product initially. But there is another one which is very important, is regarding the regulation compliance. We mentioned that at the beginning of the slideshow regarding HIPAA, SOX, GDPR regulation. We can apply directly, meaning you don't need to modify the settings like I just presented through the properties, but you just apply the regulation guideline, right? So for that IDERA form database, I want to apply one particular regulation, which will embed the privileged users, user events, sensitive columns, and permission to list several roles and logins. So next, well, I already did that for two different regulations, GDPR and PCI, but I want to add the new one, the last one, the stick regulation, right? And I will click on next and select the different events. So all the gray means that I can't change because this is a regulation compliance. So, but I can choose to add sensitive column auditing before, after. For instance, if you don't have the sensitive column auditing and before, after data set, then you won't have this possibility of checking, enabling them or not. Next and next and so on. So for which database, that one, of course, and you continue like that, and it will pass each check to verify that your regulation is okay with the setting of that particular SQL server database. Sorry. So you can do that at the SQL level, at the database level, but also at the SQL server, at the instance level. And let's finish this demo with the reports that you can generate. Activity, application activity. Yes, let's generate that particular report. So very simple again. And then application activity, I will see something around that: server, instance, host, event, schema, target object details. So get the information about that. The report that I can generate, I can, export to PDF or Excel formats. What about another, for example, I think, no, I don't think there is something. Daily audit activity statistics that can be useful. Run reports. Yeah, I get interesting things, charts about the daily activity, audit activity, but I get a lot of other like permission denied activity. Login failed, the free login failed. I could see on my graph on the main dashboard, they are listed in that table. And so on. So there are, and oh yes, very interesting. What about the regulation compliance check? If you want to understand the different checks down by the different regulation in the product, you will look at the regulatory compliance check report, and you will see the differences between each individual regulation regarding the different server events, audited activities, and so on. Yes, no. So that can be useful for you. Well, I think we are good with the compliance manager. Please, if you have any question, feel free to ask. Or if you want to download the product from our IDERA website, IDERA.com website, and so on.
Well, thank you, Eric, for a nice presentation. We're quickly running out of time here. I just wanted to introduce my colleague, David Farnabo, which is the product manager for the development softwares we have at Alfasoft, and maybe he could say a couple of words before we end this session.
So, hi everyone, and thank you, Eric, for a great session. Well, as you said, Finn, I'm the product manager. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. You can contact me at info@alfasoft.com or even easier, david@alfasoft.com. With that said, I think we are done. Thank you once again, Eric, for a great presentation.